High Admiral Elil Clown of the SYUDIO, in shock at the Death Welder that had just consigned its own species to oblivion. The sapients of 381,945 were primitive. They'd barely even achieved spaceflight. He'd known they were utterly vicious, savage beyond anything in the civilized galaxy. For Gunfly Cock's sake, that's why he'd picked one. Even knowing that though, he'd never imagined that the crazy thing would unleash every missile it could against its own planet. Where was its sense of honour? Of loyalty? Weren't these things supposed to be social, pack-bonding animals? How could such a thing willingly consign its entire planet to being turned into the core of a small black hole? Now it was laughing. Elil couldn't believe what he was seeing, but the translator was very clear. The sound the creature was making was pure mirth. It was happy, overjoyed at the idea of its people being wiped from existence. Then a horrible thought struck him, and he slammed all four of his upper limbs onto the podium before him. "You have a trans-relativity missile defense system?" The creature stopped laughing, and the little flaps of flesh that covered its ocular organs periodically closed twice. No, not at all. Elil was struck quiet for a moment, and then he shot his gaze to the display. Yes, that was still the Death Welder's planet, small and completely covered in deciduous oxygen. The coordinates were still the same. The missiles were on track to hit it. Then all of a sudden, the feeds from the over 4,500 faster-than-light missiles shut themselves off. The Death World was still there though, and nothing in its solar system looked even remotely like a black hole. It was as though the missiles had just winked out of existence. Elil's mandibles opened in shock. He couldn't help it. What? Thanks for making such an accurate targeting computer. The creature calling itself, George called mockingly, accurate down to a single inch. Everyone stared at him, trying with minds full of numb desperation and shocked to figure out what happened. Then, the Exobaspian princess started laughing so hard, she fell to her knees and wept, only able to remain that upright by hanging onto the podium before her. Elil still wasn't entirely sure what had just happened, but he knew enough to know he was being made a fool of, and the grinning, ugly, pale, squishy thing in front of him was responsible for it. He barked an order, and the Death Welder was suddenly ringed by guards wielding energy weapons that would violently cook any other species. Elil said. "What did you do to my missiles?" "I fired them, of course," the thing declared nonchalantly. "It's not my fault you didn't think to include a feature to keep them from slamming into each other and detonating when fired at the same target, and then sucking up all the rest when they did." It let that hang in the air for a moment, and Elil tried to restart his heart and mind, as both stopped in horrified shock that he'd been thwarted by something so simple. All he managed to force out was a single very high-pitched order. Kill him. Dozens of energy weapons switched on, bathing the Death Welder in pure, unfiltered 350 wavelength radiation. George the Death Welder was still for a moment, and then his limbs flew wide, and he started to spasm as painful-sounding grunts forced their way past his lips. Unsi, unsuance. Elil felt relief and vindication start to sink in. Surely even a Death Welder couldn't withstand straight radiation at that frequency. Then the Death Welder changed his spasming, and Elil's relief vaporized itself as a horrible realization dawned on him. The Death Welder was mocking them, dancing and laughing at their best attempt to kill it.